All right, welcome to the Online Network of Independent Learning Professionals. I'm Patty Bryant, and we'll be hosting today's session with Andrew Hughes. Andrew is the founder of Designing Digitally, and he has extensive experience in development of enterprise learning solutions for government and Fortune 1000 clients. He was also named the 2016 Learning Champion from eLearning Magazine, which is really cool. And Dawn Tedesco, one of our community members, took a one-day class with Andrew and found it to be helpful. And so she recommended that, we talk to Andrew. And on the topic of gamification, which is such a fascinating topic, a lot of people are interested in it. And so I'm so very grateful that he came to spend some time with us this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let Andrew share his, and so he can kind of tell us a little bit about himself, and then we can jump right into gamification. And then if anybody has questions as we go through this session, feel free to put them in the chat. It's a casual conversation, so also feel free to just let me know if you have a question, and we can actually chat about it. So over to you, Andrew.
Hey there, everybody. Can you hear me, Patty and Mike?
Yeah, we can hear you, and we can see your Designing Digitally website.
Yep, all right. Good. Well, first off, I apologize, everyone. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm actually working from home today, and just taking some Dayquil and drinking some extra caffeine. And if anyone knows me, that's probably not the best idea for me already, because I'm usually pretty energetic. So today, Patty and Mike and Sharon have invited me to come talk about gamification, types of gamification, serious games. And what we're going to do today is have a little bit of presentation, but I would also like to have it more of a open dialogue and a community conversation, because a lot of times I present this material at the conferences in our industry, and a lot of times it's very limited on how much time I actually get to answer questions and interact. But I will try to give you as much information as you would like. Since you can't see me, though, one thing that I can say is we had, if you guys get a chance, we had a Halloween party yesterday, and the entire team dresses up and we paint pumpkins. We have a pumpkin painting contest. We play Cahoots, which I don't know if you guys know what Cahoots is, but it's great. It's everybody uses their phone, and we play trivia games against each other. And then right now, something cool is you guys can actually vote on the best costume for this year. And we have everybody that participated. There's an identity thief. Patty was asking me about this earlier. So if anybody wants to see some of the team members and what we dressed up as, and if you can guess any of them without looking, you can actually vote on any of them that you would like. And unfortunately, this is the best picture I could find of myself, which is wearing a shark head. So I apologize, everybody. No, I'll show you a real picture for anybody that doesn't know. I was just showing you what we did yesterday. You can always find me here. I was telling Patty I'm an open book. And again, I apologize that I can't say hi, but this is me. And I currently am the president of Designing Digitally, but I'm also a professor at the University of Cincinnati. And no, I don't want any filters. I just wanted to show the picture. There. That will make it up for everybody. There I am. And I am a professor at the University of Cincinnati. I teach in the business and interactive media department. So I teach things like digital technologies in business, implementing technologies into all aspects of companies, implementing ERP, CRMs, executive strategies, things like that. Prior to that, though, I worked at 3 other e-learning companies, including General Electric, as an e-learning developer. And that's kind of what I ended up doing is getting approached to do a non-compete. And I said, nope, and started Designing Digitally in 2001, went incorporated in 2006. And here we are 12 years later. And so that's me, and that is my son, and that pretty much wraps up how we hang out all the time. So how many people are in the session currently? Do we have quite a few people?
Yeah, we have 23 folks right now.
Yay. Okay, so Patty, I am going to, I see you guys, but I don't think I see the chat, so I'll let you kind of just chime in whenever you would like. That way, sure. For anybody that has any questions or wants to just have an open line of communication, we certainly can do so.
Sure.
So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about serious games, but I'm also talk a lot about gamification and what the differences are. The first thing that I do want to state is defining what an actual game is. And for me, as an actual professional, I have to be able to clearly define what is gamification versus what is a serious game versus what is game-based learning. But first, before we do that, is what is an actual game? The thing that I have found is it's a built of a set of challenges that become increasingly harder, like a mountain, to overcome from the beginning to the end. And basically for us is we need to understand that games are built solely for the purpose of fun, with challenges that people learn how to overcome during that game. And so the question that I always ask people is, I hear a lot from CEOs, and I'm sure Patty, Mike, you guys have maybe heard this from stakeholders, is, well, we want to build something that is fun and something they're really going to like to do, but it's got to be just like they do it at work, and they can't fail at it. And the first thing I say is, well, then we're definitely not looking at any type of gamification or game-based learning efforts, because if you don't allow people to fail and allow people to lose, there's no reason you should be rewarding them too. And the reason why I state that is we all know participation badges are great, or participation trophies are great for our kids, but at some time, someone has to win or lose when they get older, and that's the way video games work. At the beginning, you get a little bit of a reward, and then as you go on, you don't get a badge when you jump over the tree in level 26, but you do in level 1. And so the challenges get harder, and you have to dynamically evolve in this game and learn what to do and what not to do. And I think one of the interesting things is we don't take that type of learning as creditable learning. We assume that kids are just playing those video games for fun. And we assume that people are doing these things for just the fun aspect. But really what it is they enjoy overcoming the challenges and figuring out the puzzles that are in front of them. We all like to solve problems. It just depends on how motivated you are to solve those problems. Mike, I love that you just stood, because I'm going to do the exact same thing, my man. Even though you guys can't see me, I'm sorry. So from here, I don't know, has anybody ever seen this video about the guy that just basically breaks down how our lives work if it was a video game? If you have not, basically,
I have not.
Basically what it is I can share this afterwards, but basically this guy, let me see if you guys can hear it. I don't think, you most likely will not. I don't know. Can you guys hear that on your side? So I'll just kind of explain the video because it's hilarious. And I'll back up just a little bit. But basically, this guy has broken down a human being's life into a video game. And what he says is the first, level 0 to 18 is basically the tutorial level, where you're being taught at the beginning. And the first kind of type of things you start to learn are how to build up structures, only to find out that, your only beginning learning is going to depend upon how good the prior players were, meaning your parents. And then it breaks down from there, where you break your basic tree skills, but only knowing that you have to go to school for the next remaining until 18. And then from there, you actually start playing the game, which at that point, you realize that half the tutorial part didn't even actually correlate with what you do in the real world. Or you have two options. You can purchase the college downloadable content, which will give you this stuff, but you will lose a lot of money. And then from there, you may get a little bit of an upgrade, but you're basically all in the same boat. From here, during the gameplay, you're trying to raise your your relationship meters. You're trying to build currency, so on and so forth. And then basically what you find is at the end of the game, you have built up all of this, the love meters, the relationship meters, the money meters, and now you want to travel. But unfortunately, from all the iterations of the character, you now don't have the ability to really travel a whole lot. And then the screen goes black, and you make the decision on how you play the next part of the game. And that's really up to your preferences. And that's the end of that story. And I thought it was interesting that you could actually break down our lives as human beings into a formidable game-like structure.
Very cool.
And I have that as a copy of the video that I can send you guys. You can find it on YouTube. It's absolutely hilarious. So one of the things that I'm often asked about, like with serious games and gamification, and I'll be getting to serious games here in just a minute, is what I have found is when people are playing games, such as your kids, and I've done this bet for about 4 to 5 years now in large presentations, and I've never lost this bet. So here we go. Anybody that's on this line, I will bet you $100 that if you have a child that plays Call of Duty, if you text them or call them right now and ask them, what sniper rifle is best used in an urban combat setting, they will answer you like this. And the reason why is Call of Duty has indirectly taught your children every single one of the modern weapons and how to use them in particular different settings within inside of that video game for them to overcome challenges. The scary part about that is we haven't valued that as learning. But if you start asking kids, you will find that they know that information, and they have been directly or indirectly taught that by wanting to overcome the challenges within inside of that game, or to challenge their other friends and get on high scoreboards and show their talent and their ability that they've grown from playing that game. Is there anybody that's tried it yet?
No,
we getting any chats yet? See, that's the funny part is everybody's like, yeah, right. And then they text and then they're like, oh my gosh, that is so true. So try it out. I do want to show you this. There was a study done by Harvard that actually shows that they were doing a dual controlled study. And what they did is they tested people for 30 minutes a day for 2 months to play video games, and people that were for 30 minutes for 2 months not playing video games, just going about their regular day. And what they found is by doing the study, what they ended up finding is increased attention to detail and motor skill increase. And I'll show you this here. They have this as, that's the actual some of the practice, but I'll show you that right here. So what they ended up doing is having people practice this for about 5 to 10 hours per week. And what they came out to is their abilities to think on their feet, to be able to problem solve, to be able to quickly interact with the environment around them, actually drastically increased compared to the individuals that were not. And it was quite interesting. They saw increased ability for people with dyslexia to be able to concentrate and interact because they had their brain stimulated in a way that allowed their eyes to have a higher rapid movement and were able to see better detail because they had been using their eyes to view that environment such at a quick, rapid rate. And so it was quite interesting to see all of this data that came back from taking a look at this and how they're able to study the brain and what happens with playing video games. Now, is video games going to answer all of the problems and make you super smart? No. But what it will do is playing particular games that are have rapid movement, quick environments, your brain will start to adapt and open up with neuroplasticity different channels to be able to respond to that material. It's almost like basketball players or football players become, their movements become muscle memory because they've done them so many times that what happens is they know how to react to that. That's what's happening in video games. Your kids are learning how to react, how to interact, and how to adapt to those environments. We just never think of it that way. And for those parents that are in here that are a little scared, it's okay. Don't take the video games away. The one thing that I always say is do yourself a favor. I want to give you some homework. The next time you see individuals playing, your son, daughter, niece, nephew, cousin playing a video game, sit down and ask them, hey, what are you trying to achieve in this? What challenges are you overcoming? And what you're about to do is open up a Pandora's box to some learning for yourself that you didn't even know existed. And because there are things that kids are interested in and items that we never even think about or take for value that they're learning. And then we wonder why then how they know this stuff. So we have to take this into consideration that video games they're learning from, this is a medium and a way that they are going to have to train to because they're already getting the stimuli since they're practically out of the womb. You know, my son was about 1.5 years before a tablet was introduced. I didn't want to. The rest of the kids at daycare had them. So, you know, my son was the kid without it at daycare, you know, and it's hard to handle that sometimes. And that's the new reality that we live in. So the one thing that I do want to say is even with gamification or serious games, and I'll be defining both of those here in a minute, is the understanding that this is what we're trying to do. We are trying to take fun, which produces engagement. If you're having fun, you're engaged in the experience. That then results in retention every single time. And here's what I tell everyone to try as a little science experiment. Remember for a second, take a second to remember your best teacher. Now I want you to take a second and remember your worst teacher. What's funny is when I always have, sorry, Patty and Mike, I'm going to pick on you guys because I can see you both. Every time I was proud when I do this, you can see that it always takes a minute to start ranking the worst ones. And it's really funny because the best one, they're like, ooh, got it. The worst ones are like, ooh, was Mrs. Jones worse than Mr. Trump? Or, you know, back and forth. Who's the worst one here? So in regards to this, here's what I want to ask you. Here's the last question. Well, there's two of them. In regards to you thought of those two individuals, do you remember information that was taught to you by your best teacher? Think back. Now, think back to your worst teacher. Do you remember the information that was presented to you by your worst teacher? Here's the difference, everyone. The only difference is the teacher. The information is information. The way that it's presented, the way that it's provided, and the way that it's approached is vastly different between your best teacher and your worst teacher. So what I'm telling you is fun, using gamification in serious games, allows us to provide fun and engagement, which will allow those individuals to enjoy the experience that we're having. And the reason why I bring this up is we've been in training for so long. You know, I started working on e-learning modules in 1998. That was back when Michael Allen had just sold Authorware and Director to Macker Media. And what I can tell you is it was just about, we don't care if it's fun. It doesn't need to be fun. It needs to be the information, and that's what they need. And they need to learn it, and they need to memorize it. But we're in a different society now. And what I mean by that is we're in a society where we don't want to memorize the information. We want to know where we can get it and when we can access it and where we access it at. So one of the things I think is interesting is, like I said before, and I'm going to say it again, one of the things that I always hear from executives is, well, we don't want to do games. We don't want to interact with adding some gamification piece. We don't think that'll be interesting. What I think is the interesting part that I always give people is, here's something I want you to ask them. Ask them, hey, what's your favorite card game? Don't even respond to right as soon as they give you that. You don't think games are going to be interesting, or they're not going to be interested in playing it. You need to ask them what their favorite card game is. What I think is interesting is they will perk right up. And then you'll say, well, that's a game. It's just in a different medium. You play with cards. We play on the computer. And that's how society works now. Everyone likes games. We've been playing games since we were a little kid. And I don't care what age you were. My grandfather passed away at 96 years old. We were still playing euchre at the table every single day up until the day he died. So everyone loves games. We're human beings. We love to solve problems. We love to play. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about is the digital swag situation. Here's what I can tell you, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. Gamification and serious games. Gamification, for anybody that wants to take the definition, here you go. Gamification is adding a game mechanic or two to something we're already going to have to do. There, and I'm not Dr. Seuss. I did not mean to do that. Here's what I mean by that. I'll tell you a cool story. My neighbors, and they moved last year, so I'm really sad they moved to Utah, which is beautiful. So it's better. It's more beautiful than Ohio, so I'm happy for them, but I'm sad for me. I'm being selfish right now, so just bear with me. My next door neighbors that used to live here had at the time, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I went over there one year and said, hey, I'll pay you guys $5 to rake up my leaves, because I have a big maple tree in the front of my yard. It's gorgeous. It turns red and then it drops all the leaves. And it's a massive amount of leaves in my tiny front yard. And so I went over there and tried to give them $5 each to rake up the leaves and put them in my bin for me. And they were not interested in that. And I thought that was fascinating. So I went to the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to say this right now, not Dollar General, that's false advertising, Dollar Tree. And the Dollar Tree, I bought a stopwatch, a poster board, and a 99-cent trophy. And I went back home and went back over there, and I said, hey guys, I got a game for you guys. What if I were to time you guys to see who can get the most leaves into my bins? And I have 2 bins, and I'm going to write down your times every year to see if you get faster each year. But oh, wait a second. I also have this trophy, and I want you, whoever wins this trophy, gets to rub it in their brother's or sister's face all year long until next year. And then we'll see who gets a trophy next year. The thing I can tell you is every single year, as soon as my leaves fall, until they moved, I could not get them to stop bothering me about when we're having the game. When are we playing that? And I spent less money than the $10 by implementing 2 game mechanics, a timer and a trophy for the winner. And those 2 things to something that already had to be done is what gamification is. Okay? We were already trying to do it. It may be a meeting where you add a timer to a discussion. It may be leaderboards where they may have to take a couple of your courses that are regular e-learning courses, and you give them a badge for completing that or progress. That's gamification, okay? That is not what a serious game is. A gamification is what I'm talking about here. Badges, leaderboards, and trophies implemented into structures and processes and things. Does everybody understand that? That's what gamification is. A serious game is a game that's built from the bottom up with those challenges built within inside of it for them to achieve over those challenges that possibly have them practice scenarios and items that align to the behavior that you want to see happen within inside of the business. And that's much different. You're starting from the ground up looking at it as a actual full out game rather than just adding a few mechanics to a process that you're already doing. The one thing I can also tell you is they're not the solution to everything. Oh my gosh, you guys know how this goes. About every 3 years, we get a new buzzword in the industry. And I think we went from, and I don't know if I have them in exact order, but we have XAPI, which now is actually coming to fruition, and you see quite a few examples of. We have micro-learning, we have gamification, we have game-based learning, serious games. We had a while before adaptive and responsive learning. And those type of buzzwords doesn't mean that those aren't effective tools and approaches and ways of doing these things, but they're not the answer to everything. what is the answer of everything is actually looking at the curriculum and the things and the behaviors that need to happen and what you need to do from a business impact, and make sure that whatever you're building is going to align and produce a better experience and a better impact for that business from the time that you started till the end of whatever you're creating. Whether it's a game, whether it's adding badges, whether it's doing leaderboards, things like that. And we all know that here's one of the funny things that I often see. I've seen, and this happens, and I've heard it from executives before. Well, we tried to build, a game-based learning experience, and what ended up happening is no one liked it, or, it just didn't take off. So we're not going to do that again. That didn't really work. And a lot of the times what I see that without taking the audience into perspective in detail, what you end up doing is building something like this, Call of Duty, which the target audience is not the same target audience as the people that play Candy Crush. And so if you have a target audience that loves games like this, it may work. If you do not, unfortunately, you're going to end up building something that will not work. And a lot of times with inside of organizations, you get about one shot before the executive said, well, that didn't work. We tried it, moving on. And I've seen that quite often. So take your time and be selective in what you do.
And on that note, actually, Andrew, a couple of quick questions that we have, if this is a good point. Barb is asking, she'd be interested in hearing ideas for game mechanics that would work within a stuffy professional environment. And Michelle's asking, what things are considered game mechanics?
Okay, I actually have some of that. So just give me 1 second, and I'll be able to pop that up for you, okay?
Awesome.
Let me see. I think we did an entire piece on this. So I'm just looking it up on another browser here for everyone. I'm sorry. Okay, so there's a couple things that we've provided. The first off, I can send this blog over so you guys can take a look at this. But we actually kind of broke down examples of motivators of what can be done rather than just looking at mechanics that can be done, but what can be used. And that will help first to kind of look at what kind of things you think will motivate them. The second thing is if it's a stuffy environment, you have to ask yourself, if you want to use gamification, the awards, the rewards, and systems like that, to motivate them to do particular things, go out and do some research or, complete these existing modules. That's what we call structural gamification. And there's a lot of tools, even like Mozilla Open badges that you could possibly use to do something like that. Or something like Credly. Have you guys has anybody ever heard of Credly?
I haven't.
Credly's digital, basically digital badging systems that you can actually integrate to quite a few things. They're good people. It's relatively inexpensive. They have, the free account that you can practice on and work with, but it makes it pretty nice for you guys that are looking for a cheap way to do badging. Now, one thing that I also want to talk about with the stuffy environment and game, let me see if I can find that slide. Sorry, guys.
No worry.
She caught me off guard. It's in my other slide deck, so I'm pulling that up. Here's
and
another
then that. Go ahead there.
No, I was going to say we have put together video game genres for learning, so that you guys can kind of take a look at what those different genres and what may work. The one thing that I can tell you that doesn't work is back in 2003 to 2009, we were doing a lot of what everyone was doing, which was Second Life and virtual worlds. If you guys remember that material. Excellent in theory, absolutely excellent in theory. The problem is the hurdle of getting people inside of the corporate world to just get them to do what they need to do was too big. It was too big of a hurdle. So in regards to this, what we have found is, companies want to do light, lean, mobile friendly, quick type of experiences. So unless you're going to go down like the detailed VR world, keep it to light gaming, keep it to interacting with detailed stories. One of the best things that I can tell you is, have you guys ever heard of the Walking Dead video game?
I've heard of it. I've not played it.
Yeah, here, I'll pop it up so you guys can see. I'll open a video game, or I'll just open it up so you guys can kind of see here. Videos. No, not the season. Video game. Ah, no. Yeah, here. I'll mute it though, okay? Here's what I think is interesting, because I get this a lot, especially from people asking, hey, stop it. I have a lot of people ask me, what video games lends themselves, or what genres lend themselves to good video games, or into good serious games, or into something that can really help, like she said, in a stuffy environment. Here's what I can tell you. This is the Walking Dead video game. It surpassed Call of Duty. It surpassed Madden. It surpassed everything for the best video game. I think it was in 2014. Here's why. Not because of how beautiful it looked. Not because of some rapid play video game, shoot 'em up, bang, bang, run around and do all of this. It was the story. This is a multiple choice game. All you get to do is pick A, B, C, or D through everything. You do not, in any way, shape, or form, have to shoot and run and jump. You make decisions. For instance, you are trapped in this hotel area that you guys have boarded up and all of that. And during this, what you end up doing is you find 4 candy bars. Everyone is starving. There's 8 people. You choose who gets a candy bar and who doesn't. You make that decision, because guess what? 6 episodes later, or 6 levels later, your decision is going to be shown, the outcome. Did you bring the right person to the party to save you, or did you not? And that is what makes a really good learning experience, a really good movie, a really good video game. It's not necessarily add this mechanic and make this awesome. It's about how creative can you be with your stories, and can you put a story from the beginning to end together that is fun, engaging, compelling, and brings it all together and shows you the outcomes later on of either negative or positive outcomes. They must be able to fail, they must be able to lose, and they must see extreme repercussions for the choices that they make. Anybody play this? Do I got any people in the room? Got any players?
I've not played it. Has anybody else played this one? It kind of reminds me of the Spent. I just posted the link to that one. Yeah, where it's just super simple, but all of the decisions have consequences, and it's kind of gray areas. There's no black or white. It's are you going to spend money to put food on the table, or are you going to save your dog who needs a surgery or whatever? Like it's
That's exactly what it is, and it's pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy because my wife never plays video games other than things like Candy Crush. She's what I call a light gamer. And she's, 36, 37. She's probably going to yell at me for saying that. Sorry. And she is a light gamer. She likes quiz games. She likes things like that. What I thought was interesting is she played this from beginning to end. This is not something she would ever play. And I enticed her to try it just for like 2 minutes, and she was stuck on it. And she played it every night until she finished it. And I've never seen her do something like that. It was so out of the ordinary. So I state that because what happened is she got hooked into the compelling story. It didn't matter about what it looked like or, what you had to do. It wasn't extremely tough for her to do, but it was so compelling that she just came home, and I was like, so I'm making dinner again? Yeah, you got this. Bye, honey. Mm-hmm. And so, which I'm fine with. It's just, it was such a fascinating observation to see. So this is really on Steam if you guys want to try it.
A couple of questions here. Joe is asking if The Walking Dead game of decision making transition to the benefits of REM described earlier?
I would say so. As like I said, one of the things I think is interesting is looking at what we could call branching decision making. What I would strongly suggest is we look at what's called parallel branching. And what I mean that is parallel branching decision making trees. Da-da-da-da. Let me see. I just had one open the other day. And what I mean by this is you cannot do like a real branching situation, a truly branching situation, because this is what ends up happening. Most video games have about a 3-ending experience. So what ends up taking place is you actually have to pull these back and connect these more so that it is a smaller kind of connection together. So you may have 3 or 4 different decisions and outcomes that you can have. But the problem that we quite often do is we think of this as actually true branching, like a tree. And if you did that, you would have an exponential like this amount of outcomes that you would have to build in. And that's just too much. And what I mean by that is video game companies that have $150 million to build these video games only give you 3 endings because they know this is impossible. So to define it in our industry, what we're looking at is what's called parallel branching, where it comes together, then breaks back apart and comes together. I actually have a slide on that, and I'm sorry I keep jumping around.
No, this is great. We're diverting you around. So.
It doesn't bother me. It's just I think it's in the other slide deck. So let me double check. Let me see, where is it? It's not that slide deck. I bet it's the old one.
I don't know about everyone else, but this gets me so excited. Just like looking at all these different, it's very inspiring to look at all of these, ways of thinking that you've got here. And I mean, video games, I don't generally play, but thinking about some of the components, really cool.
So here's a great example of this. So this is what we're currently, like everybody says, we want to see branching. If you were to do true branching, what would happen is this would be how many outcomes you would have to make. That's not the right definition within inside of our industry. So there's things called parallel gameplay or parallel branching, where this is what it's supposed to really looks like when you play Call of Duty or you play with The Walking Dead. This is what actually, because it's manageable. It's something you can actually do. You can handle something like this. You can actually build this out by just looking at this formula. So, major decisions happen here, and then you all come back to here based on what happened. This is how most video games are built. Now, there are also other ones, which are called threaded. And this is where you may pick a character and they have different storylines now for the beginning of the character. But guess what? It all usually ends the same or close to the same, or maybe it may have 2 or 3 different outcomes.
Very cool.
But for, our e-learning industry, we really should be doing something like this because this is manageable.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I always tell people, look at parallel branching, parallel gameplay, because you can really kind of look at that and be able to handle it. Now, there's other ones. These are more of what you're seeing in more advanced gameplay now, which is where you come in and you're randomly put into different scenarios maybe. And like Grand Theft Auto, you only have access to a particular area, which is randomized, and you can do whatever you would like whenever. And then other areas don't open up until you've completed both aspects of it. And then that continues, and you may have 3 different outcomes at the end, things like that. So this is more like Grand Theft Auto structure. And so my undergrad is I double majored in interactive media and graphic design. And a lot of the interactive media was based around developing of games and developing of web-based interactive experiences. So I kind of had a cool ability to mix both of those together. And a lot of this is what they do in like game theory and development of game structures within inside of our curriculum and materials. So coming out of the university, you had to know this if you were going to go into the gaming industry. So luckily, since I'm in the training industry, I'm able to kind of mold, hey, this is what this definition is. We should be using this too. That way we don't have those just broken terminologies between different industries. And they've already figured this out way before us. Why? Because we are the unsung heroes of the companies with very small budgets. And these companies have $150 million every year to build a game. And they're figuring out these structures way quicker than us because they have the manpower and the funding to do so.
So we've got a couple of questions, if now would be an okay time, Andrew.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Mike had a couple of questions about, like, what development tools do you often use? What are commonly requested by clients? And are you seeing like certain markets or industries that want gamification, or is it just all over?
Oh, that's a good question here. Let me grab another slide deck. Give me just 10 seconds. I just had this one up. Where did I? We have found, let me see, I just had it up. I just got back from DevLearn and I had a slide, so I'm going to show you the slide deck right now. So if you're actually looking at light gaming and efforts like that, here, I'll just from this slide. Boom. Sorry, I'm jumping around because this one's more about VR, but it's the same type of suites, okay? First
Sure.
off, one of the things that we use quite often is if you're going to be doing like your any type of video or 360 video, After Effects already has the built-in 360 video tools, just so you guys know. Now for like gaming, here's a couple things. You can actually, we have built pretty productive gamings, especially in the light gaming side, in Captivate, Storyline, Raptivity, Lectora, iSpring, Adapt. And then one that we have found to be, and what you're looking at here is A-Frame. A-Frame allows you to do like 360 and 3D models and interaction. And then there's also one that we use quite often called Babylon.js. These are all JavaScript frameworks. And you can actually build games inside of here. You can also use Construct too. I've seen, because they export out to HTML5. And then what you're going to have to do is just write your SCORM wrapper, or use XAPI if you're already connected to an LRS, things like that. But then you have, if you're going to build like higher end games, things like that, and things like we build VR builds for companies, and this is one that we developed called VR Chop and Drop, which was for a gas and energy company to learn how to cut trees in a residential location without hurting themselves or hurting the property. And to do that, you would use things like Unreal, which is now, it used to be like a 10% profit sharing with them and a $10,000 fee to use them, but they now have a free version and just a licensing version. And then you have the Hero engine. This is used quite often in the gaming industry for one of the developments of like Heroes Army and other army-related developments. And then one that's one of the most industry favorite is the Unity engine, which used to be the Unity 3D engine. We use that quite often here. And we also use the other ones depending on the customer need, since we're looking at our company as development agnostic. So we pick depending upon what the customer is used to using, what the approach is, and what we're trying to do. If we're just trying to do some light content gamification, but we still got to present it, there's no reason we need to build it in Unity. Building something in Storyline or an HTML5 build could just as effectively motivate them and give them that understanding. So it's really not about the tool, it's about your approach. Now, if you're looking to get into like 3D, there's a whole bunch of 3D modeling programs you can use. Things like 3D Studio Max and Maya that are now owned by Autodesk. That's what we use. Blender's free. Cinema 4D is pretty decent. Houdini's a newer one that's open source that everybody can use. So there's just a couple other examples of some of the software material. And again, sorry, jumping around.
No, it's all good information. Have you seen any like good examples of a game or a gamification, I guess it would be more so for like a sexual harassment course. Have you ever seen anything done with that type of content?
I have. There's a couple things. I'm not allowed to show it. Yeah. Okay. So I can give you an explanation. When we did one for a financial institution where you're in first person point of view, much like what you see here, and we did it as like a 360 example. And what happens is they're actual 360 videos, and people come up and interact with you with inside of your office. And what ends up happening is the way that you interact with them, they will, have appropriate and inappropriate conversations with you. And what that allows you to do is feel like you're immersed in the experience, and then you make decisions based upon that type of experience, and you're given points. Now, here's the thing that I want to tell you. This is a key thing for gamification. Please, everyone in the room, stop making a progress bar for when they are going to complete your module. All you've done is incentivize them to hurry up and get your module over with. Because all that does is psychologically say, oh my God, I'm only halfway done. This is terrible. How do I get the other half over with? You should be using progress bars for decisions made, the different approaches taken, the things that they do with inside of the experience is what progress bar should be increased in. So if they make a decision, like this is Brianna, she's awesome. She's our office manager. And if Brianna here, says something inappropriate to me, first I would say, shut up, Brianna. But second, I would also say, because we're not, we have a very casual working environment and we're very respectful to each other. So she would never do that. So where I'm going with that is let's say there was the decision, the outcome of how I respond to her may lower morale. And maybe you can't pass the course until morale is above 75%. So we've been looking at progress bars all wrong. Stop doing a progress bar for how many slides you have left. All that does is motivate people to hurry the hell up in your course, not learn anything, not do anything. Your progress bar should be used to motivate people. Motivate them for the behavior you want them to do, not just make it so that they complete it. Oh, look, I won a 14. Yay.
And Bridget really, 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 really agrees with you. She is written thank you, and she's so glad you said that. And Mike is asking, is this Captivate? I don't think it is, but what did you use to create
HTML5. This is HTML. Yeah, I know Captivate 19 just came, or 2019 just came out with the 360 piece, but no, this was done in HTML5 with a 360 camera.
Okay.
And we do most of the time understand that we have a team, production team, but we also have an R&D team that does a lot of R&D efforts. So they are in the middle of really pushing the envelope. So we made this a couple years ago. So at this point, this is where I hide. Well, I used to hide. There I am. Hey!
That's so cool.
Actually, yeah. And the reason why I say we did this a couple years ago is because what's really cool is we used to be over here in this building when we first started, when we were young pups. And then we left there and moved over to this bigger building. And just 6 months ago, we re-signed. We're taking over this building too.
Oh, so, congrats.
We're about to blow a hole in the wall and take over our old building. So it's going to be surreal to walk into our old office for the first time.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, quite a long while. So
Michelle had a quick question on, what books might you recommend for us to learn more about gamification and serious games?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dr. Kopp's, the gamification for learning and instruction. I really think that is a very strong aspect within inside of he's blended pretty well quite a bit of the gamification side, which he really looks a lot at like structural gamification, but he also looks at content gamification at the same time. So really it's more about looking at his material. I would look at his first, followed by there's quite a few development books about game development. Be careful. you don't want to get into, and this is what I tell you about like Unity and things like that. Like we have game developers that are building in Unity, and they've been building for us since we built a build for the United States Air Force Academy back when Unity just kind of rolled out. And we took kind of a roll the dice, and it worked, and we successfully was able to build this multiplayer virtual environment for the Air Force Academy right at the point where we found Second Life was not going to work out, because we did a lot of research studies and said this is hindering companies and government agencies from really getting in here fully without it spending a lot of time. So we built a browser-based virtual environment with inside of Unity. But it takes game developers to do that. So if you're experienced at Captivate, my advice is to stay in Captivate and develop and get more skilled at variables and decision-making trees and outcomes and stories, and adding things like points and badges, but adding your meters based on the decisions that they make, and you will go way farther than trying to go crash course on YouTube how to build in Unity. And that's the big thing that I can tell you. And the reason why is these guys are like wicked smart, and they send memes all the time of, programmer fail, and it's just the lay of the land. Things evolve and change on the web and things like that all the time. So you're constantly having to evolve and change. Doesn't mean you should just jump in and out of different programs and only learn just a little. Master what you're already practicing and add those mechanics in, and you'll see a bigger impact with inside of your organization.
Great advice. Yeah. One thing that I kind of skipped past was the markets and industries. Are you seeing like certain markets and industries wanting gamification, or do you feel like there's not like a single?
I don't think there's a single industry. I think what it is every company inside of every industry is trying to figure out how to engage employees, how to motivate employees, and how to get them to do knowledge transfer. Those are always the biggest things. And what I mean by that is, man, I love Brianna, but if Brianna ever gets sniped, and what I mean by that is, when Procter & Gamble hires her or something, all the knowledge in this amazing person's head leaves when she walks right out this door. And she can document everything you want, but fact of the matter is that stuff is hard to get. And so every company is trying to motivate, engage, and knowledge transfer. These are tools to do so. They're not answers to fix the problem. They're tools to solve some of it. They're not. It's not an end-all solution. And a great example is we get this a lot because we do these 4 core competencies of e-learning, serious games, training simulations, and mobile learning. And what I can tell you is a lot of times we end up building like an ecosystem because it just makes more sense for us to build, some traditional e-learning experiences with maybe a couple game mechanics in it, maybe a serious game that is an assessment piece, and then maybe a mobile learning tool that they could use either pre or post for reiteration of information. That's how you really have to look at it, is building it out as a multi-medium level ecosystem of curriculum built around what you need to train them. And a lot of people just look at it as, I need this course, or I want to gamify this course. And yes, you can. And if you want to do that, honestly, guys, the best way to do that is to start with one of your interactive knowledge checks that you already have in one of the courses that you're building right now. Make it a maze instead of just a quiz question.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Make it, they only have 5 seconds to answer the question. 4, 3, 2, sorry, go watch it again. Yeah, they're going to go, dang it. Too bad, too sad. That's how life works, how the video games work. If I don't answer within inside of a time frame when I'm a sales rep and I'm giving a sales presentation, and if Patty asks me, what do you guys know what Bloom's taxonomy is? And I just pause uncomfortably. In the back of her head, Patty just went, he doesn't know this. And whatever comes out of his mouth just now is going to be crap. So in regards to that same type of philosophy happens here. We got to let them fail. It happens every day. It happens every day for me. If they don't know what they're talking about and it's not topic knowledge, right off the knowledge check, they need to go back and do it again. So 5 seconds, boom. Oh, you don't know it? Too bad. Especially since, I hate to tell you all, I'll be the bearer of bad news. They don't watch your modules. They wait till the audio narrator starts talking. And then they click back on the frame. So what better way than to give them less than 5 seconds, adding a timer to answer that question. And then just writing, oh, sorry, you didn't answer the question. You obviously were doing something else. Go ahead and retake this again. And there's no reason you can't be quirky and do that, even in a stuffy environment. Because what I think's funny is our expectation of the learner and our reality. It's like all those UX memes you see where they show like a university made sidewalks, but then in the winter they showed that like all the kids did not use the sidewalk. They walked right through the yard and made like a patch. And then somebody says, you know, this is the difference between designers looking at it and actual testers using it. It's the same thing here. It's the same thing. Our expectation of them paying attention to that, and because it's important to us, is not important to them at all.
Yeah. Wow. What a great presentation, Andrew. I mean, I have learned a ton. Does anybody have just any last minute comments? We've only got a couple minutes left, or any burning questions, quick questions that you wanted to quickly discuss. I really loved all the videos that you showed, and it was really cool to see the one where it's like someone's, you know, lifetime of video, and I mean, just so many things. I feel like I'm definitely leaving pretty a lot more inspired with this gamification.
I was just going to say, if anybody wants to, you can go to LinkedIn, and slide decks are right here.
Okay, perfect.
So all of them are right here for you to take a look at. And you should be able to grab those and just add me, and we'll nerd it up.
Yeah, awesome. And real quick, Bridget wants to know, she's a Candy Crusher, dying to know what the name of the game is that your wife loves.
Oh my God, that stupid one with the stupid, sorry. Let me answer. I think it is Candy Crush. Candy Crush is the one with the little, with the long map. Yes, it's Candy Crush. And she's like on level like 305 or something like that. It's stupid long. And she plays that all the time. And then you know what she does? I don't know if you guys, ladies, sorry, because you guys are the demographic for that. Then she tries to make me on Facebook like join so she can get an extra credit or something, so she can play another level she loses. And so she's consistently trying to get me to do that because she needs an extra token or something. Ladies, people, do you know?
Oh, Lord. I don't know.
I can't see the chat, so I don't know. But
yeah.
I could have probably looked there. I'm sorry, everybody. So that is basically what I see quite often, is her playing Candy Crush.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. Everybody, I'll be uploading the recording later, and I'll also send it to you, Andrew. So great to have you. Everyone, let's give Andrew some chat love for spending an hour and taking the time to walk us through this. We really appreciate it.